Get social with us. Follow us on Instagram at Goodtaste TV. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Good Taste for the Soul. I'm Tanji Patton. We've got a special show for you today. We're back on the beautiful Guadalupe, just in between Hunt and Ingram. A lot of hope and healing and transformation. You can tell by the river here. Quite a bit of work has been done. It's not like it was, but beautiful nonetheless. I wanted you to meet someone that I had heard about last time we were out here, which was, I guess, in July. Doug Stringer. Doug, I'd heard your name, and Somebody Cares is the name of your organization. And the more I find out about you guys, the more I'm impressed. This is an amazing group, and it's one of many that really came out in force and worked in tandem together to help the recovery in this area, right? Tell me about Somebody Cares.
Sure. Well, we're known for a lot of disaster relief, but that's not really what our main goal was. We were starting out as a organization working with many churches and other agencies that had a heart to reach their communities. And as you know, I've written about and I talk about, if we go fishing with a fishing pole, you catch one fish.
Right.
But if we become a mended net together, we can do a whole lot more together. So there was a time in my city where I live in Houston that I thought, what would happen if a person who had a marriage need or was homeless or HIV or whatever that need might be, or needed a rehab, and they walk into any church or ministry in my city, rather than saying, well, we don't do that here, say, we don't specialize in that area in our church, but we are part of the Church of Greater Houston. So we started a theme called Area Churches, Ministries, and Organizations Want You to Know Somebody Cares Houston. And of course, that's expanded across the country and around the world. And so because of that, when there's a crisis, we are able to connect with people we already know in those communities to find out what the real-time needs are. So we're able to get the resources to connect it to the needs and making sure that we're there for the long haul to be able to make sure that people recover. And of course, we've talked about before, Tanji, the thing that people overlook is the area of also, after the crisis, also dealing with long-term grief and trauma.
And there's a lot under the surface in communities that we don't see just driving through.
Absolutely.
In the area when I was here most recently, you guys were working in is just a mile or so from where we are right now, right. And you were rebuilding. It's a beautiful little community called Bumblebee, and you guys were literally rebuilding homes for free that were destroyed.
Yeah, and part of our net that works, one of our partnerships in places like Haiti, Japan after the tsunami, North Carolina, other places, is a group called CRI, Crisis Response International. And so they are able to mobilize volunteers, come in and do muck outs. So that first weekend after July 4th, they were here in Bumblebee Hills. And so we came alongside as they were coordinating volunteers. We were coordinating getting resources here from Baltimore, Minneapolis, other parts of the country, directing volunteers through them as well. So probably about 30 plus homes that we were able to help partner with and muck out homes. So that way the initial crisis.
It's not a fun job.
Exactly. And trying to be sensitive to the homeowner that there's mementos and family heirlooms that they might have lost. So we want to make sure we're sensitive as we're mucking out, that we're also thinking about the families. And so as a result, we've been involved with at least 30 homes in the region. And then in that community, we've already had one home completely rebuilt and be able to move back in. We're working with others. And as you know, you've met some of the residents and the homeowners. And so we're just trying to come alongside and make sure we're advocating for them. We don't care who comes in to do it. We just want to make sure we get the resources there, and we're there to help that homeowner get back as quick as possible in a safe environment and a clean environment.
Well, that's what I thought was impressive as well. You guys are very low key. You don't seek a lot of attention. And from what I've read and the research I've done, you never have. You've been content to be, quiet soldiers, I guess, so to speak, to use a term. And the work you do is pretty remarkable. What are some of the things we don't think about? Because as you say, the media's gone. It's been a while since we've seen this area in the news anymore. What are some of the things, maybe there's existing needs we don't know about, and physical as well as mental?
Sure. And that's a great point, a great question, Tanji, because a lot of times when the media gives attention to something, there's a lot of attention brought. There's resources coming in. People feel it, and it's not almost real. It's almost like a facade in some ways, because all of a sudden you have thousands of people coming into a community helping the best they can. People appreciate all the help.
Right.
But beneath the surface, when the media leaves, a lot of the agencies leave. They go on to other stories, which is what they do. But there's all a vacuum in the community. And I've heard over and over from homeowners and people that live in the community in this whole region saying, what happened? It's like, where are the people?
Yeah.
And they feel like they've been left. And so we want to make sure they know that there is a lot of people that have not forgotten them. God hasn't forgotten them. We haven't forgotten them. And that we're not here looking for anything. We just want to come and see how we can advocate for them, serve them, whatever that looks like. We're on calls. I'm on hours a day, and myself and others in our organization that are praying with people calling and just venting. And so we're able to get local pastors also to help us and to partner to calling some of the families and how are you doing today? Or getting gift cards that say, you know, you need a break, go out and have dinner. So we get them a gift card to a nice restaurant that's opened up. And
HEB cards, there's a beautiful sign someone at their home put up.
that's right. That's
because
right.
when I was here, they were passing out HEB cards.
And HEB is amazing. In fact, it was in Moore, Oklahoma during the tornadoes there that we didn't have a refrigeration truck for all the meats that we're giving, and we were cooking for people after those tornadoes. Yeah. So HEB actually took one of their trucks from Texas, brought it over to Oklahoma, and then from that, they actually started what was called their disaster arm. So now I have a disaster arm for HEB. So they've been an incredible partner, along with Lowe's, have been an incredible partner in sending volunteers and resources.
And Lowe's, I think, is worth mentioning. I believe in Flowers for the Living, and a shout out. If you're comfortable with me telling this story, you guys didn't solicit anything from Lowe's.
No.
You all were just going and buying a bunch of gloves and supplies, nails, whatever you needed. And someone paid attention and sought you guys out to donate, right?
Absolutely. In fact, they would come out and send some volunteers, and then they began to talk to Mark, our point guy that's actually from San Antonio, but our point disaster relief guy on the ground since that first weekend of July 4th weekend, and kind of overseeing the rebuilds of the homes and getting people's appliances and getting everything, resources to them as best we could, donated items, but also hiring contractors, local contractors to help where we couldn't. And so they began to notice, saying, so Mark, tell us what's going on. And he said, well, we're part of Somebody Cares America, and we're a network of organizations working together. And they said, but you're not going after anything. Well, no, we're just here helping the people. And Mark said, you know, Doug, our founder, which of course me, says don't go soliciting, don't go looking for the resources. Let's just go help the people, advocate for them, and the resources will overtake us. And so I get a phone call while I'm in Kerrville at another meeting, and it's actually people from national and from regional and from local Lowe's saying, are you nearby? We're going to go by Bumblebee Hills to meet with your folks, and we wanted you to be there. And I wasn't able to make it there in time, but then I get a phone call from Mark. Says, Doug, you're not going to believe this. Lowe's just donated $100,000 to us because they've noticed that all roads lead back to what we're doing, that they realized we weren't looking for attention, we're not looking for accolades, we weren't going after soliciting resources, we were just getting as much we could from everywhere else to bring it in. And so they become a great partner. It sent volunteers to us. And one day, Bill, the manager at Lowe's, says to Mark, what else can we do for you? He goes, well, you know, all these homeowners, we're not helping every home right now rebuild, but there's different groups helping. But we like to mow the whole community. Let's clean up the community. He goes, so what do you need? He goes, we need some lawnmowers. And so we got a pastor to get his son to coordinate all the volunteers, and Lowe's sent over the lawnmowers and the resources we needed to help clean up the community. Wow. So it's simple things like that that take the pressure off the trauma.
Absolutely. A shout out to Lowe's for sure. I would imagine there are so many beautiful souls that come out in a situation like what we've had in the Hill Country. You had mentioned to me there were some I call them God winks.
We call them God stories or God winks.
God stories, along the way here that you guys have seen.
Well, one day I was getting a phone call from our folks, and it says we have a whole lot of list of tools that we need. So we began to pray about it, and that's another thing. The folks at Lowe's said that Mercury One came in, bought a trailer, and filled it up with every tool we needed and brought it and delivered it to us so we could have tools to use. But I was looking for a local hotel because all hotel rooms were taken up that first few days. So I called, I'm a Diamond member in one of the hotel chains. So I called and said, I'm not trying to curry favor, but I'm a Diamond member. I have some of my folks driving back and forth every night and coming back every morning from Austin, Round Rock, San Antonio, We just need a place. We're staying on sleeping bags in different places. Is there any way that if a room opens up, you could let me know pretty quickly? So I gave my diamond number to the receptionist, and she says, wait a minute, are you the Doug Stringer from Houston? I said, well, yes, I am. She goes, oh my goodness, I used to be the director of Youth with a Mission in Belize, and it used to come speak for us all the time. I still remember some of your messages. So she was able then to find, whenever a room opened up, immediately called me. I said, take it.
Aw.
And we were able to start getting rooms for my team. And then we started getting local businesses and local families saying, we have an Airbnb. We want to donate to you to use it for some of your volunteers. We had the Sanctuary Church, a little church here in Kerrville, open up their sanctuary as a place for all of our volunteers to come and sleep. We'd feed them. We had other friends that owned shower trailers and toilet trailers. They would donate those to come and set them up so people can use them. So it's everybody working together. It's that net that works that really helps relieve a lot of the issues.
Any specific needs now that you would want people to know about?
Sure, I think it's multifaceted, as you know, Tanji, that millions of dollars of revenue has been lost to the local community. So we're talking about Hunt, Kerrville, Ingram, Comfort, Center Point. All these areas have lost a lot of income because of the camps and so on. So they suffer in a way that people don't see, because then employees suffer because they can't keep on the employees.
Right.
So I think that the real need is not just what we see in the tragedy, which is very heartbreaking in many levels, but it's also the long-term trauma, grief, and then there's homes that are still not able to get rebuilt. They didn't have insurance, or they were underwater in their insurance, or they can't rebuild, or they're waiting for permits and so on. There's a lot of dynamics at play, so people just need someone to come along, what we call the ministry of presence. Be a listening ear. Have empathy. Just say, okay, well, we're here with you. How can we pray with you? What can we do to advocate for you? So there's so many things like that going on. But even practically in homes, a lot of the resources that are being collected or donated, we're trying to get those practical resources like sheetrock, and we're trying to get windows, we're trying to get bathroom sets, we're trying to get tile. All those things that have been donated, we try to give out as best we can to the homeowners that we're helping, and let them pick what they prefer. When it's all said and done, we want them to be moving into a healthy, safe, clean environment, prayerfully better than before, is our desire, and that they would feel like they got their home back. We have one gentleman who's a 98-year-old World War II veteran and his wife, and they lost everything. And so we've been in contact with their daughter, who's a doctor up in Austin, and they just want to move back into their home. The sweetest couple. And so we've been able to go in there, help them getting the resources they need, getting contractors in, getting volunteers in. So we're praying that they're going to be in soon, back into their home. And one special thing, Joan had her little project was she had a little trailer, and she would fill it with books and take it down to the market and here in Kerrville, and have it for kids to be able to pick out books and stuff for them to read. She really had a heart for that kind of a library. She lost everything. Well, we found the trailer some ways down the river.
Oh my.
They picked it up, brought it back, cleaned it up, and now we've had a church, Lakewood Church and others in Houston, that donated all kinds of children's books and things to fill it back up. So now she's able to go back and do what was a passion of her heart to do.
Probably bigger and better than ever,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Well, there's still a lot going on. I don't know if people listening to this can hear it, but there are workers. There's even some search efforts still going on, not far from where we're sitting right now. So it's still in many places and many parts an active construction site and scene. But there's a lot going on, you're right, under the surface that we don't see. So continue, right, to monitor, and don't forget our friends.
That's right, and realizing that there is a vacuum right now, and that people are going to be carrying on grief and trauma for a long time. And you had mentioned the Godwinks. You had met Ram, and a young man, and you met Joe, who's has Parkinson's, and Joe and his wife, he has Parkinson's, usually has to use a wheelchair. And so Ram, who had a house further up the hill, was able to rush down and rescue them out of the flood July 4th, carry them back up to his home. So there's a lot of just heroic, everyday heroes that emerge. No one's born a hero, but heroes and champions step into moments. And there's so many God stories and God winks like that.
A lot of beautiful souls.
That's right.
Among us.
And all it took was to make themselves available and say yes in those moments.
Well, speaking of making themselves available and saying yes in those moments, I do want to share your story as well. Because, like I say, your organization, you don't hear a lot about Somebody Cares. It's not something you see ads for, billboards for, things of that nature. You guys are pretty low key, but you do a tremendous amount of work all around the world. But this started out, you were a fitness instructor, and you had a little gym in Houston somewhere.
Yep. Well, I used to I used to manage stop smoking and weight reduction centers. I managed fitness centers. And then I decided to open my own little place, like a calisthenics place, an exercise fitness center. Started working with people from the Houston Oilers and the Derek Dolls and
I
others.
remember the Oilers.
Remember them? And so from that, I had an epiphany. And that epiphany was with my best friend was killed over a drug deal. And I was living, professing to be a Christian, but I wasn't acting like one. Mm-hmm. I was all about me. And when that happened, I had an epiphany. I went to my knees and I just basically said, God, if you can do anything with someone like me, I want to make myself available to you. And little did I realize how serious that prayer must have been, because God heard that prayer. And one day I woke up, me and my roommates, we took in 17 gang members, homeless people, just helping them out.
This is what I find so interesting about your story. You were going to the streets, literally, and ministering to people in the street. And it's horrible to say, but it's true. Places a lot of us look away from. You know what I mean? There's fear element. There's the it's horrible to say, but you guys, you dove into that aspect.
Well, because I said I'll make myself available when those opportunities opened. A few of us would volunteer. We go down, spend our weekends, and then pretty soon every single night till 2 or 3 in the morning, walking some of the highest crime districts of Texas was in Houston at that time. Mm-hmm. And we began to find stories of people, teenagers that were teenage prostitutes at the age of 14, 15, 16, people that were drug addicts, people who were involved in all kinds of addictions, trying to find places for them to live. And so in the interim, of course, my apartment, and then my roommates and I. In fact, my roommate was out of town one day, and he was up visiting his family up in Washington, D.C., and so I had picked up a homeless man who hadn't bathed in a couple of weeks, and I met him on the streets the night before, and I said, if you'll call me on Sunday morning, I'll take you to church. He called me on Sunday morning. I thought, he actually called. So I went to pick him up, brought him back to my apartment, figured he better take a shower or bath. So I didn't have enough, the right kind of size clothes, because he was bigger than me, but my roommate that wasn't there, it fit. I didn't tell my roommate till years later what happened to his clothes. But I took that person named James to church that morning. He cried like a baby. And he went and said, I said, do you want me to take you to a shelter? He said, no, take me back to the streets. I'm going to tell my friends, because I was a counselor at another gathering that night in the Coliseum, which used to be in Houston, because I'm going to come back, I'm going to be there and I want them to meet you. So that night, and this is a part of my story, that night, the counselors were saying, hey, there's a group of homeless people looking for you. And we said, well, can we help you? And they said, the homeless person, James, said, no, I've got to find Doug, because Doug became a man for me. I want to become a man for him. He wanted to show me that he was a man of his word. That has become a message I've shared all over the world at men's events and things like that, saying, I want to be a man for Jesus because he became a man for me. It really is about availability. It's not about our abilities. It's not about what we have or don't have. Mm-hmm. It's in fact the feeding of the little boy's lunch and the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus didn't say, give me what you don't have. He says, give me what you have. It was a few fishes and loaves. When you offer it in thanksgiving, God has a way of multiplying to meet every need and more than enough. And that's what we've learned in the principles of God's word, that if we just make ourselves available with thanksgiving, take what little bit we have, God always multiplies it, and it's more than enough.
Yeah, that's certainly the story of Somebody Cares.
Absolutely.
When you read, you have a wonderful book that catalogs where you started and where you've been. I love too, you said your business card just had the word Somebody Cares and a phone number, right?
Well, back then we had pagers. And so it's Somebody Cares 24 hours a day. We put our office number and our pager number. And I would have volunteers on 24-hour shifts that would have a little binder. If people would call from a payphone, you have to remember what payphones were, or call from anywhere, we would actually try to process them, go pick them up, take them somewhere. But a lot of times, we didn't hear from people from, 6 months, up to 6 years later, I think I talked about in the book. But that card ended up all over the country. And something about that card people didn't want to throw away, because it's Somebody Cares 24 hours a day. They did not want to throw that card away just in case they needed to know somebody cared.
And those are powerful words.
That's right.
Truly.
That's right. And the fact is, all of us can be somebody who cares. Because it doesn't matter. I tell people when they say, well, can we start a chapter? And we have chapters and affiliates in various countries and cities. I said, look, you don't have to call it Somebody Cares.
And I love this because so many groups, and I want to say this nicely, it is about
the branding
and the bigness and all that. And you guys.
I tell people, look, you can use that name. Here's our licensing agreement. But here's the deal. Just do the stuff. Do what you're supposed to do. Care for your community. And the fact is, if you walk with that passion, do what your passion is, you can call it whatever you want to call it. We're going to come alongside and help you. So even like in Botswana, I'm on the founding board of what's called Love Botswana Outreach, helping 12 different nations there, meeting with people that are going through all kinds of struggles. And they've been there for over 35 years. They don't call themselves Somebody Cares, but they're affiliated with this. Right. Or Core Love for Orphans in Haiti or in Honduras. They don't call themselves Somebody Cares, but we're all connected because we have a term that says, while men reach for thrones to build their own kingdoms, Jesus reached for a towel to wash men's feet. If we could be those who just serve people like Jesus served, then it doesn't matter who gets the pat on the back, who gets the credit. God sees and God knows.
Exactly, and that's what it's about.
That's right.
At the end of the day. Anyway, you have some beautiful stories in your book, and I think God works in so many ways. And if we just pay attention, right, we start to see. One of them, you tell the story of I think it was an HIV patient in Houston, who was kind of disruptive to your organization, would show up and, yell at meetings and things of that nature. Tell the story about that. Sure. He called in on a radio show.
Well, I changed his name in the book because I never want to, talk about a person's name. But he was a disc jockey of a pretty popular radio station there. But he hated us. He hated what we stood for, what he thought he perceived. We work as perceptions, not always the truth, but it becomes the truth to those who perceive it.
Was it because some people?
Yeah, he hated Christians, and I didn't know why. So I knew there had to be some sort of, he was compensating on the outside for a hurt on the inside. He would come to some of our meetings with placards and protesting us, calling us hate mongers and bigots, and I'm thinking, you don't know us. And we'd be on the streets helping homeless people, and he'd come out and try to disrupt us and then turn the camera on to see if we're going to respond in an angry way. So I told all of our volunteers and folks that, look, just be Christ-like. We don't know what he's been through. And so anyway, one day he called me on a 2-hour Christian radio talk show. I was the guest. He changed his name, and the caller, they said, so-and-so's on the phone, and he mentions the name. I didn't know the name because he didn't give his real name. And he starts calling me names again. I'm thinking, wait a minute, I know this voice. I said, is this so-and-so? He goes, yes, it is. I go, well, tell me, where are all your friends when you really need them? He goes, what are you talking about? My friends, we cut for each other. We take care of each other. I go, really? When you couldn't pay your rent and your light bill last month, where were your friends? He goes, how did you know about that? I wanted to say, well, I was born in Japan. I'm partly ninja, right? And I said, no. I said, look, it doesn't matter how I found out, but I found out you couldn't pay your rent and your light bill. I didn't think we'd ever have to tell you this. We just did it anonymously. But me and a few of my team, we took up money out of our own pockets to cover your rent and your light bill. He was silent, didn't know what to say. Well, I was at a gathering for Mission America at the time in Arizona, and we were having a meeting. I get a message call back to the office. I call back and they said, Doug, so-and-so is in the hospital with full-blown AIDS. And so I called another young man who had HIV that we'd been helping and said, could you go and meet with so-and-so at the hospital? So he went on that Friday night, and the first thing that the person that hated us said, why did you pay my rent and light bill? He goes, well, that's what Christians do. He goes, no, I don't understand. As much as I hated you and the things I've done, why would you do that? It was still bothering him. So this other young man that we were helping who was HIV looked at him and said, it's because that was what Christ called us to do. And so that night he was able to pray for him, lead him to the Lord, and he passed away the next day of full-blown AIDS. I shared this story in a large church in Conroe, Texas, between services. I was, multiple services. Between services, a woman comes up to me because I never mentioned the young man's name. And she goes, excuse me, was his name such and such? I said, yes, did you know him? She starts weeping. She goes, that was my son. She goes, I had prayed, God, would you please send people to reach my son? So it wasn't about us. It was about a praying mama who was crying out for her son. And for whatever reason, he left the church. He hated Christians, but his praying mama prayed him in, And we were like the donkeys that rode in and just were able to let him just get mad at us, but we showed him Christ-like love, and as a result, he gave his life to the Lord. So that was an answer to her prayer.
Well, the book is lots of stories that are just so wonderful. I thought it was interesting too, and I guess in light of so much of the current events, your original name for your business was Turning Point.
Right. Well, I'd like to say it was spiritual how I did it. I went from calling my place Body Talk Conditioning to be calling it Turning Point in fitness. And the reason I did was because I was taking a vitamin every day called Turning Point in Nutrition. So that became our name because I was transitioning from our business into, I started getting people at night when I closed, from all homeless people to pastors to drug addicts to people that heard about what was happening and said, what happened to Doug? He's like changed. So they would come and we'd start having worship services and music services and creative dance services for a whole dance company that I was able to minister to and led them to the they were in Urban Cowboy, they were in Dance Fever, Solid Gold, many of them.
That's a great story too.
And so they would come in and I just let them use my facilities at night, and we began to have these services that grew to 150, 250 people, and I'm a baby Christian at the time. So I realized we're moving and transition. So I said, well, really the greatest turning point is the Lord. So we're going to call it Turning Point. And later it became known as Turning Point Ministries. And then later we changed it to Turning Point Ministries International because so many other people started using the name. Great name.
Yeah.
But the real turning point is the Lord, and that's how we started using that name. I see that there's always good news behind all the bad news. Mm-hmm. And there's something that Jesus said in Luke chapter 21. He talks about all the tsunamis, wars and rumors of wars, racial tension. He talks about all these things that would take place. Mm-hmm. But one verse pops out in Luke 21, verse 13, out of Jesus' own mouth. He says, but, and he's speaking to us, but it shall be an occasion for your testimony. So regardless of what people think, why things happen, I believe it's an opportunity for us to represent in a Christ-like way, be a tangible expression of God's love to hurting people. After Katrina and Rita, I had 21,000 people showed up in my office in Houston looking for help just because of the name. At that time, Somebody Cares.
Right.
So people, well, somebody cares. And so people would refer them to us. Now, we didn't have to turn one person away. I didn't have maybe $100, $200 in the bank. By the time we were done, every one of those people, every 21,000 and more across the Gulf in Louisiana, all the way through Mississippi and Texas, we were able to give away over $2 million worth of gift cards, millions of dollars worth of resources that were donated that we gave right back out. Didn't have to come through my bank account. We just gave it where it needed to go and directed people and resources together. And so I really believe if we would be that kind of available, tangible expression, then the whole community benefits. And it doesn't matter if the people believe in us, have our faith. It's not about having to be a Christian. As a Christian, though, we want to be Christ-like and be a testimony and take opportunity to be a testimony to those that are going through difficult situations.
You've been around a long time, and I have too. We're about the same age,
Right.
So I think I'm safe in saying that. And you've worked all over the world and in really dire situations all over the world. Based on what you're seeing, do you think we're at a turning point of some sort?
I do, and I think that, I started in 1981 when I had the Epiphany, so it's been 44 years.
Yeah.
And it's hard to imagine that I'm this old now. I always tell people I'm 50.
It's just a number, Doug.
I'm 50 for the 19th time coming up. But
I use that story
yeah.
too.
So, but I believe there's a lot of good news behind all the bad news.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that there's going to be continued shakings. There'll be implosions. There'll be a lot of exposures, and that's going to be very heart-rending. Our hearts can become overwhelmed. But we do have a hope, like I said in Luke 21:13, when Jesus said, but it shall be an occasion for your testimony. I believe where the things are in the world, we need to make sure that we're Christ-like, we're a tangible expression of God's love. There's a person right here in after the July 4th floods who said, look, I'm a pagan. I don't want you to tell me about Jesus.
Here in the Hill Country?
Yes. And so some of our folks said, well, that's okay. We're here to help you if you want help. So she wanted the help. And then so one of the other families, when we started putting up their sheetrock, put scriptures on their sheetrock and prayed for them. And so this person who didn't want anything to do with God said, well, what about my house? Because they had been working on her house.
Yeah.
Well, you're putting those scriptures and stuff on the house, but not my house. They said, well, we wanted to honor you. You said you didn't want any of that stuff. She goes, no, I want that. So they end up being able to pray for her. So the witness that when we just come in Christ-likeness in a world that's going through implosions and through exposures and through challenges, people's hearts are overwhelmed right now, and from stress and anxiety. So it's an opportunity for us. So there is a turning point. I think that, not just playing off that term, but the reality is I believe that the turning point is the Lord, and that we who follow him can be a tangible expression of the Lord for people who are going through difficult times.
Absolutely. And some of the things that really stood out to me in your book is a lot of us sit back and think, well, I can give or I can do this, but really I think sometimes doing is very important. And there's a couple of lines in your book. Simply by being born to this generation, you and I have been called for such a time as this.
Right.
That applies to all of us, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When I think about the story of Esther and Mordecai, when she was now called to be queen, and all of a sudden all of her people are going to be annihilated, and Mordecai said to her, could it be that you've been chosen for a time such as this? And the fact is, all of us step into moments. We live in a generation. There's so much turmoil, wars and rumors of wars, challenges, natural and earthly, natural and human disasters and crisis. It's our moment not to focus on the crisis, but to be focused on being a tangible expression of God's love. So I do believe this is our moment, that we're all born to step into these moments. And there's another scripture that I love out of Psalms 110, verse 2 and 3. And it said, really, it's talking about the womb all the way to the youth, but it says there will become a time, an army of volunteers will join up for the day of God's power. So I really believe this is a time for people to say, look, how can I give of my life, of my time, talent, resources to help serve other people? As we serve other people, we get blessed. When you think about this, even all the people I've helped in my life, I get more out of it than they've gotten from me. And I was telling a story to you earlier off camera about North Carolina and a guy named Bubba who owned Bubba's Barbecue and another guy at another restaurant. They had no electricity. They had no water. We set up and said, if we let us use your parking lot, we will take care, make it clean, we'll take care of everything. We're gonna use your parking lot, feed people, feed the first responders. And then we started bringing in truckloads of things coming between us and Crisis Response International and Somebody Cares America. I think over 140 or 150 semi-truckloads of resources came from across the country.
That's a lot.
And volunteers came from everywhere. Well, when the electricity came back on, the restaurant owner who had hired his staff, kept them on salary because they couldn't work, but they kept them on salary to volunteer for us. And then across the street, Bubba had all these barbecue pits and we needed more cookers. He let us use his barbecue pits and volunteered. So when they opened up their businesses, after losing a lot of revenue, it was standing room only for people to get back into those two restaurants because they had served the community. When we serve, even out of our own need, there's a way that God multiplies those things back to benefit us.
That is so true. That is so true. You have another line in here I liked. It says, the creator of the universe intends for your life and mine to shape the destiny of this world. That to me means here and now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're here now.
Yeah. Well, I have a saying that relationships define our destinies. First with God, then with one another. And I realize that even if people don't like me, if I can take the high road and be a light to them, somewhere along the line, even my adversaries become my advocates.
Yeah.
And every obstacle become an opportunity. I know those sounds cliche, but we really try to live by those principles because I found some of the people that did not like us, when they saw us living out the gospel, being an example of Christ, it opened their hearts to receive the good news. And you've heard stories of what we were doing in Indonesia with Muslim leaders after the tsunami, that now they're open to receiving from us and wanting to be friends.
That's share that story. That is so remarkable.
Well, I'll fast forward. After the tsunami, I was in California, and one of the organizations that we partnered with in helping after the tsunami in Indonesia, they have, at that time, 200 million people in their country, the largest Muslim country of the world as a nation. But we were there in 1998 helping during the Asian economic collapse. Fast forward, they actually gave us airlifts by their military into Banda Aceh, which is the doorway to Mecca for their country, where they hated Christians. But yet they airlifted us there because we got volunteers from Indonesia to go and help. We sent medical teams in there. We sent volunteers in there. So before the United Nations was there, the Indonesians that we had worked with from 1998 were there after the tsunami. And so that even the governor of that territory told my folks that I sent from the U.S. to meet with our Indonesian brothers and sisters. And he met with them in his home and said, my mind and my heart are in conflict. And they said, why? He says, because during 9/11, we danced in the streets at your calamity. But during our calamity, you're not dancing in the streets, you're here helping us. So my mind and my heart are in conflict. And then the president of that country actually said things on national television promoting the Somebody Cares movement, which we weren't there to start a movement, but just empowering churches to do what Christ said to do and to even love your enemies and set up feeding centers and reach out to your community on an everyday basis. So then you fast forward, I'm in California at a fundraiser and for this other organization and Children's Hunger Fund. And I was with an Indonesian pastor who lived in California. I was getting ready to leave the next day. He gets a phone call at his house where I was staying. It was the president of Indonesia who said, I want to meet with Dr. Doug Stringer. So we put my suit back on. We went back to meet with her in the area in a hotel in the reception area. She told her bodyguards to leave, and she pulled me aside and for the next 2.5 hours began to tell me how grateful they were as a nation for all the things that all of us did to help their nation after the tsunami. And then also to tell me all the current needs. I said, Your Excellency, we're just a small potato organization on paper. We don't have a big organization. And the president said, you may be small potato on paper, but I understand you have a lot of equity and brought a lot of help to my nation. So when you think about that, relationships define our destinies, first with God and with one another. It really is about finding those who have a like heart and like mind, connect the resources together, and say, how can we together be a tangible help to people around us? That speaks louder than our words. I think it was St. Francis of Assisi was given credit. Preach the gospel at all times, and if you must, use words. Well, the fact is we want to be a tangible expression and then share the gospel, but it opens the hearts for people to receive our message if they see the practical side of what we do.
The actions and deeds.
That's right.
Absolutely. So for people that are watching this, how can we pray for you, your group? Because literally you guys are in places all over the world. We're not.
I guess my prayer for that is not so much for us, but, that first weekend, even in July 4th weekend, I got calls from first responders saying, Doug, what we're seeing is horrendous. And our own law enforcement troopers, first responders, firemen and firewomen, they're going to have a lot of grief and trauma too. So PTSI, we don't call it post-traumatic stress disorder anymore. It's a injury because it's things that they go through emotionally, and so it's not abnormal. It's just what they've seen and experienced. So we need to be praying for all the first responders from all over the country that came here to help. Be praying for the families that lost their loved ones. That spread across the country, and then be praying for the local community, the local businesses, the people that employ people, and those that need jobs. But also pray for all the residents who've suffered a lot. They're the ones that are going to be carrying a long-term grief and trauma also. So what we're trying to do is also help in the areas of helping first responders here, helping to help the homeowners, local businesses, and even the local schools. And, we've sent in motivational speakers, and I've got friends that are professional athletes or chaplains coming in to speak at team dinners for the football team, and just to give the encouragement that people need to know that people are still here, somebody still cares, and that we haven't forgotten them.
Wonderful. It's called Somebody Cares. We'll be sure and put up a link. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your patience.
Thank
We
you.
fought the tractors doing the work, the sun, the mosquitoes.
Well, mosquitoes tend to find me, so
They usually find me too, but I guess I'm lucky you're here because I did okay in that front. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tanji.
Thank you. Get social with us. Follow us on Instagram at Goodtaste TV.